Okay, I'm gonna. Okay. I was gonna share. Okay, perfect. My name is Jeremy Searle. I'm with WCG, Wall Consultant Group, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Again, I know you're all here to see me, so I plan to take this, another hour or two so we can learn about this trail. No, I'll try and keep it short, but I am really excited to be here, both as a resident and as a project manager. Here to share about the Woodland Hills Trail feasibility study. So just as a little bit of background, Woodland Hills on their general plan has long had a paved path or trail paralleling Woodland Hills Drive on their general plan. And I used to be on the planning commission and was really excited about this and being in the field in engineering and doing a lot of trail studies and stuff. I said, we can really look into this and see if this is even feasible. Is this something that we could possibly do? And so I worked with some city staff, including mayor and others, to help get a grant with MAG, the planning organization for the area. And so this study is paid for primarily by MAG. 93% of it is paid for by the county and MAG, and the city has a 7% match to help with this. So just so you know how that's being funded. So we're looking into this to see, is this feasible? Does it make sense? What does that look like? And so to be quick through this is what we're going to talk about today. So we've been working hard. We've been meeting with Ted and others here at the city regularly to talk about this and come up with this study. So we'll talk about some of the previous plans, the area, and right away, conceptual design, things like that. All right, so this is the old general plan. It's the current general plan is being updated, but this is the plan from 2017. It showed this paved trail around that loop. So up Woodland Hills Drive, connecting to the park, and down Summit Creek. Okay. The nice thing about this trail is one, these are our busiest roads in the city. And if any of you have walked on these roads, sometimes it's uncomfortable to be walking when cars are driving by you. So this would help improve safety quite a bit, giving people a separated path to walk. It also connects most of our major destinations in the city, right? We've got our two churches down at the bottom. We have the city center. We have the park. We have kind of the Summit Creek area. And it connects all of these and is not too far away from the Switchbacks Trail, which kind of, that's basically all the destinations here in the city. So it gives us some good things there. As we look at the new general plan, this is being done by another firm with the city, but they asked some really good questions. And so I pulled some of the information that they did. One of them was, would you like to see, or I would like a trail or other pedestrian facility along Woodland Hills Drive. And people could either strongly agree or disagree, that type of thing. And we found that 40% strongly agreed with that sentiment, and another 14% agreed. So about almost 50% of the city was very strongly in agreement with that. There was some neutral, and then some that disagreed. And then if you look at the pie chart down there on the bottom left, again, very strong support for a paved trail, some support for an unpaved trail, a little bit for a sidewalk, and then about a third that said keep it as is. So as we look at that, generally speaking, people in the city are looking for a safe way to walk around the city. And so we feel like there's some good support for that. And so that same trail is being shown in the new general plan. And I want to emphasize that it's not just Woodland Hills that has this on their plan, but it's also in more regional plans. So I mentioned MAG earlier. They're helping fund this study. Part of the reason they're helping fund it is because it's on their long-range plan. They are the metropolitan planning organization for this whole area, and they look at trails and roads and things like that. And this is one of the trails they have on their long-range plan. It's also in part of a recent study that's going on that we're involved with called the Nebo Beltway study that looks at the future of 11200 and Woodland Hills Drive at both the roadways and the trail system. And this connects to that, and so that's included there. It's also on what's called the Utah Trail Network. Many of you may have heard of this. It's been in the news a lot recently. The governor came out and said, we feel that trails are really important and we want to connect the whole state. And so this is a new initiative. They have $40 million a year of ongoing funding to help with trails throughout the state. And one of the trails that was identified is this loop around Woodland Hills, as well as, I know that map's kind of hard to see, but that diagonal one is the Salem Canal Trail that was recently paved. And then the other one is going up the highway there. And then the Highline Canal Trail will be part of it. That's just a canal now, but it'll be a future trail. And then it also shows a connection into Elk Ridge. And we're coordinating with Elk Ridge right now a little bit on that, and there may be more to come there. So they've got most of the trail on the long-range plan for the UTN, the Utah Trail Network, and we're working with them to get that last piece of the loop put in place as well. So it's on more than just our local network. And you can see on this slide how it kind of fits into the whole region. But there's a lot of trails in development. This is a big focus for the state and for local communities. I'm sure many of you have walked on the Spanish Fork River Trail or the Salem Canal Trail and things like that. And this would help connect to all of those. So you wouldn't have to drive to get to those. You could ride your bike to it or things like that. So, all right. So what does this look like? Well, right now we have, our Woodland Hills Drive or Summit Creek Drive. What this would look like is a paved trail adjacent to that. And in between, we would have our rock line ditches. Right? So this is kind of the cross section of what that would look like. Now, Woodland Hills Drive and Summit Creek Drive both have a right-of-way of around 56 feet. And you can see that fits within that right-of-way. The tricky part, especially on Woodland Hills Drive, is that the right-of-way isn't always centered, right? So the road was built years ago before survey and all that was really great. And so the road kind of meanders through our right-of-way like this. And so some places there's room, some places there's not, right? So we'll talk more about that. But this is kind of what that looks like. And then we did kind of a mock-up right here of what that could look like. So that's just a quick mock-up there. All right. So as we studied this, we found that it made sense to kind of split this into 3 segments. And this helps not only with understanding each piece, but also with phasing this into the future, right? We can't build all of this at once. And so in order to break this up into bite-sized pieces and get this funded through either the state or MAG, we have to kind of do this in phases. And so we're tentatively calling the one in blue phase 1, or segment 1, which is basically from the city building up to the park. Phase 2 is down Woodland Hills Drive to the roundabout, and then phase 3 is Summit Creek. All right. One of the things we did is we did a right-of-way inventory along this and looked closely at where the road is in relation to the right-of-way, where we have room, where we don't. And so we looked at this really closely through here. And it was interesting. Also related to this, we did LiDAR through the whole thing. And so we took our drone up, we got LiDAR information, looked at the terrain, where it drops off, where it doesn't, so we know what kind of cut fills we would need to do, that type of thing. So that's all part of the concept.
Could you explain LiDAR for everybody who might be in the audience?
Oh, I'm sure there's people here that are more intelligent on that than I am.
And also people listening, maybe.
Sure. So our survey crew has this drone that does LiDAR, which basically takes a bunch of survey points from the drone all over and gets this LiDAR data or survey data on all these different points, and it puts together a 3D surface there. So we're not just looking at a flat 2D, because in Woodland Hills, not everything's flat, right? In fact, very little of it's flat. And so we can't just say, oh, a trail will fit there, when maybe it's a drop off or maybe there's a ravine or something like that, right? So So that's what we're trying to capture there with that LiDAR information. All right, keep rolling here. So as we look at right-of-way, as we look in segment 1, I know these tables are a little bit hard, but we looked at kind of both sides of the road. Which side would it fit on? Which, where would it not? The part between the city building and up to Loafer Drive, on that north side of the road, we actually have 96% of the right-of-way along there already. There's enough room there to fit that trail for 96% of the way. So that's really good, right? And then across up Loafer Drive, up toward the park, we also have a majority of that. I think this slide says 81%, but I think it's actually higher. We made an adjustment to the design. So I think we're getting close to 90% of the right-of-way up Loafer Drive as well. And so that's really nice. There are a few places where we would need to either acquire some right-of-way or get an easement or do something like that. So it's not easy, it's not perfect, but for a majority of it, we actually do have some really good room along here to fit that trail in. Looking at the next portion, so segment 2, this one was a little bit more interesting. So this is where the road winds the most, is down Woodland Hills Drive between the city building and the roundabout, right? And the road kind of meanders back and forth in that right of way. So some places we have room, some places we don't, right? And as we looked at it, there wasn't a clear side that had more than the other. It was almost 50-50, right? It's like 52-48 or something like that. It was really close. And so at that point, that's where we went to the LiDAR data. We said, okay, where does it make more sense? Because on one side, we may have more difficult terrain, more different things in the way, stuff like that. And so looking at that data and things, we have more opportunity on the east side to fit that trail. And so that's kind of the tentative plan, is to put that on that east side. That's the side that church is on, and then the city building is on. And then it would cross over to the other side in front of the city building here. So. All right, and then let's look at segment 3. So this is down Summit Creek. And here, once again, on the west side, we have 97% of the right-of-way on that side. That one is obviously newer down Summit Creek. They've got that trail, or the road, kind of in the middle of where they dedicated that right-of-way. And so we have room for that trail on the side there for 97% of the way. So very, very clear majority. So that was kind of an evaluation of the right-of-way. I'm trying to be fast, Mayor.
No. I think this is great.
Another key part of this was drainage. Many of you are probably aware, drainage is a little bit of an issue here in Woodland Hills. I know Ted deals with this all the time. He's nodding. But in some places, we have some pretty good rockland ditches. In some others, we don't. And the water just kind of flows across the road and kind of flows everywhere. So one benefit of this is with the improvements that we make with the trail, we can also make that improvement to that rockland ditch, right? And get that grant to help pay for the trail and the ditch and improve that, get the water flowing in the right places and not across the road. And at least on one side of the road, really improve that, get it nice and get some drainage system in place for that. And I've got just a quick drawing here. I'm not going to, actually that's toward the end. Here, I'll skip forward. Right here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but basically we have these rockland ditches with some pipes underneath the driveways, and then across roadways we'd have kind of this sump system to get it across roadways and then down into the ditches. And then we've coordinated with the county. We can connect into their new detention basin that you see down here on the corner of the four-way stop over here. So anyway, so we've got a place to put the water. We can improve the drainage along there. So I think that's an added benefit to this, is not only improving a safe place for people to walk and bike, but to also help capture that water.
And we did pay for our use of that. I mean, it was a combined effort between the 3 cities. And so it's not that we're just dumping it there. It's that it is part of the planned project together.
Absolutely. You're right about that. And the county mentioned that and said, yeah, of course you can dump into that. That's part of what you paid for, right? All right. Again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because I want to be cognizant of everybody's time, but we do have concept designs for the whole layout, and you can look in detail on it if you want. It'll be part of the study. But basically, we looked at where kind of the cut fill lines would be, where the crossings of the trail would be, how it parallels the road throughout. And so I know it's too small for you guys to see this, but it is there, and you can zoom in on that and look at different key pieces of that. And you can see we got that drone aerial, so that's all brand new from just a couple months ago. So it's all nice and fresh on here with the design. So that'll all be part of the report. So we're getting close to being at the end here of the study. So next steps. Obviously, the biggest one, the most difficult one is corridor preservation, right? There are a few places where we don't have all the right-of-way, in particular along the Woodland Hills Drive segment between the city building and the roundabout. What we recommend is if and when there are empty parcels that develop, that we work with those property owners, that when they develop, they can dedicate a few feet in front of their parcels to preserve that right-of-way for a trail. There are opportunities for corridor preservation funds from the county and things, or easements, things like that. But that's kind of the next step, is working through that. And then we can apply for funding, just like we did for the feasibility study. We can now go to, because this is done and we have kind of a plan in place, we can now go to MAG or potentially UDOT with their new UTN network and say, hey, we're ready to go. We want to do this. Let's start looking at phase 1 or phase 2, right? And start putting those in place. So those are kind of the next steps. And yeah.
So
Any
will you be
questions?
the one that will be doing that next one? I mean, obviously, it's the beginning, the corridor preservation. Is that a committee that you are going, that this study committee that you've been working on? Or is it you in particular with the mayor? Or who is going to start navigating that process? Because we know that some of the developers who have come before us, we've asked them specifically, are you willing to do it? And almost, I think all of them said yes. But for those that know that Woodland Hills Drive goes right through some people's property because they didn't want to go up the easements because that would require more time and effort and money. So they just went around the big bumps. And so some people, their front yard is actually in the middle of the street. So how are we going to navigate that process with those homeowners?
Yeah, great question. So that'll have to be done obviously on a case-by-case basis, right? And I think your best opportunity for the city is as new or empty parcels develop, right? When those come in, as part of their development process, you require that they set aside that easement.
So are you planning on having like a community meeting for those whose land may be impacted, who don't currently have enough in just to answer questions and bring it up to them? Because there will be like-minded in terms of, oh, it goes through my yard, I didn't realize that, right? Where others, it's just a normal part of their easement, they don't, it's.
Can I maybe interject there real quick? I think individual meetings initially are a better approach. In my experience, I've been through lots of easement discussions because you give people very specific questions in their phone. You can personally address them when you're meeting individually with them, start with. And we've done that on some other projects here in the city. And then we might hold a meeting. I think most of this, the right of way is not that far into the road. Most of them are pretty small slivers, is what we're talking about. They don't really impact a lot of yards. So I think at least my initial approach would be to talk to them individually. And because then you can get very specific and look at maps specific to their property.
So Ted, will you be the one that goes around and talk with Jeremy, or is it vice versa?
I'll let Jeremy do all of it.
Who's gonna be going to the residents? Because the wildfire, and unintentional there, will spread very quickly of other cities going around asking questions about our right of ways. So I just want to know when I get phone calls, who I'm directing them to.
It'll be me taking the lead.
Okay.
And then we'll work with whoever we deal with.
Well, there you go. Okay, thank you.
And Jeremy, I can't emphasize enough, that I thought was really good news, because I was concerned about the rights of way. I thought this is a non-starter, and it even seems like if we can't successfully obtain all that we need, there still is a way to have a trail system. We have enough more or less to do it, even if there are some people that just don't want it. So I thought that was really encouraging. How many households would you say roughly we would need to get right of way permissions from?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know that I have that number off the top of my head.
And that's okay.
But I can quantify that. Get back to you.
Just be curious.
Yeah, good
Okay,
question.
no, that was an awesome presentation.
It looks a
Council,
lot better than I thought it would.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's great.
fantastic. I mean, very optimistic from where we were before. So very appreciated. Like to know the nuts and bolts. I mean, that's the next
Sure.
step is getting into that nitty gritty and I think Ted taking lead on that is going to be super beneficial.
And I think our residents too prefer that the trail is in front of the house next to the street and not
Sure.
in past years it was suggested in the backyards and people were upset by that. So I'm really thankful that you looked at that front easement and so it's visible and it's safe for the residents and it's safe for the homeowners.
Agreed. I think it's better all around. People are already walking on these streets, right? That's already occurring. And so just getting them off of the road and away from the traffic and I think
Absolutely,
is a win. So.
absolutely.
okay, thanks, Jeremy. And while we're riding high, let's move on to the interviewing of applicants to fill out the city council seat. So, as I believe all of you, so Diane, good to have you here. Dan, nice to have you here. Tim, thank you for participating in this. And Mike, thank you. So as I hope you are all made aware, the anticipated format will be, we'll give each of you an opportunity to get up and present a brief statement. And then the council will have an opportunity to ask each of you 2 questions. And
It's the same question
yeah,
for
if it's the
all
same
4.
question, yeah, then we can not.
So are they
Well, you can answer it twice if you'd like. Maybe
they
you can
gonna
come with a
come up-
different answer between the council members asking.
Are we gonna have them come up, all 4 of them, so that when we're asking, we're not looking like this?
Oh, I mean, I actually didn't think that through.
Okay.
We could. It doesn't, if that's what the council would prefer.
Well,
that-
just
I'm
because
fine
they're
with
gonna
that.
be answering us the same question,
And-
maybe it would be
Yeah, like maybe
beneficial
pull up a chair.
Okay,
to come forward.
and if you think that our city is not modern, we used AI to generate a list that we follow in terms of the order of statements and answers given. So, and if you need the documentation to prove that it's AI and not just Jody picking her winners, I've got it right here. So. All right. So the order that we'll go will be Tim, and then Mike, and then Diane, and then Dan, you'll bring us home. Tim, take it away.
Thank you. I'm Tim Weeks. I'm married to Hillary. She's the better half for sure. I think most people know that. We've been married 33 years. We have 4 daughters. They're remarkable. We have the oldest 3 are married to very remarkable men. And on Sunday, we had our 5th grandchild. So we have a grandson and 4 granddaughters. I'm the managing partner of Company Vitals. We're a professional services firm. Fractional CFO work is what we do primarily. When we first came down here to look at a house, it did feel like we were from Lehigh. It felt like we were coming to northern Arizona at the time. It feels a little different now. But when we looked at it, as we were leaving, Hillary said, "I'm moving here someday. I hope you'll follow me." She grew up on the shores of the Cook Inlet in Anchorage, Alaska, and we always said if we found something that was based on nature, we'd go there. So we moved here 9.5 years ago. May will mark 10 years. It was a difficult move for 2 of our daughters because one was going to be a senior. We ended up commuting to Lehigh that year. And the other one had her best friends across the street, so it was a little bit difficult. But all of our daughters have loved it. We were welcomed here, loved the people. I would describe the people as accomplished with humility. So we found a group of people that were really just good people. And as we would dig in and learn more, we'd find out they were great accomplishments from the arts to science. Since moving here, I have spent most of the time in church leadership positions. I've had conversations with Carrie over the years, but it was never the right time to do anything like this because it just felt like it may be a conflict of interest there. I am currently serving as a bishop in a young married student congregation in Provo. That is a 3-year assignment, and the 3 years ends in June of this next year. It would be a challenging first 6 months if we did this. It hasn't felt right until this time, and I have just, felt compelled at this point. So Even though it'd be a tough 6 months, my role as a fractional CFO means that I'm managing multiple client priorities and multiple issues constantly on a day-to-day basis. So again, prepared for that. I do understand at some level the work and time required, loss of personal flexibility time, but excited to do something to help the city. It's a place that we've just come to love. We will be here forever, and so it's worth the investment in time. So I do not have any city or civic experience with any municipalities. I do have a little bit of experience with nonprofits, but primarily with the private sector in a variety of industries. I am basically a blank slate as I start this, so there'd be some patience as I came up to speed with the history. I've watched things on a cursory level, but not dive real deep into that. So beyond the obvious issues of maintaining the beauty and resources of the city, fire protection, taxes, finances, I'm most interested in working to move past some of the negative stuff in the past and see if we can get our dialogue in the city to be productive and collaborative on that. So thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, and next, Mike.
You know, I thought about this and I thought you've all seen my resume. I've campaigned for 2 months. So I think everybody knows a lot about me. In summary, I have 2 master's degrees, one in marriage and family therapy, one in psychology, a bachelor's degree in finance. I owned my own business doing financial planning for several years. Saw an injustice that was happening with my wife's grandmother. Decided to alter my career path so that I could take care of that, and have stayed in that path since then. I've worked for DCFS for almost 20 years, Department of Children and Family Services. Was a manager there for the last 13 years I was there. Was promoted from social worker to supervisor in 2 years, from supervisor to manager 3 years later. I have a lot of experience working with government entities. I spent 5 years here in Utah working for the juvenile court. I spent another 5 years working for the Children's Justice Center. So again, my career is mostly centered, other than the first 10 years where I was in business, had my own business, was self-employed. I've had lots of experience working with the disenfranchised and have a big passion for them. I thought in addition to that, I'd share a little bit of what my resume doesn't show. And that is a little bit about who I am as a person, what I bring to the council. I think what I bring to the council is a lot more than what my resume says. To self-disclose a little bit, I grew up in a home with a lot of domestic violence and alcoholism. Grew up with that. Ended up becoming a member of the church as a teenager because it was the first place I ever felt safe. And I still love it for that. I've served in many capacities there, different times in my life. We were scheduled, my wife and I were scheduled to move up here, I've shared this before, in 2005. But I received a particular church assignment that kept me down there for another 7.5 years. Wasn't anticipated, but that's the kind of person I am. I just am fully committed to things. While I was getting each of my degrees, I think it's important to note that I worked full-time during each of those degrees. I worked full-time to put myself through school and was self-employed as a newlywed. Had 2 children when I got my first master's degree and worked full-time. Worked full-time and had 4 children when I got my second master's degree. Not to say that I'm that great because I couldn't have done any of it without my wife. She's 90% of where I am today. But that part of me, I learned how to manage my time, learned how to manage my money, learned how to manage resources personally. Let me just share a couple other notes. I love the city of Woodland Hills. My wife and I moved here. We found it by accident. I've been committed to the city since I moved here. We moved here as a family in 2014. I had to finish up some things in California where we were living at the time until 2015. Joined the fire department in 2015, been an active member of the fire department since then. Was asked to be the city flag master. I didn't write a date down, somewhere around 2017. So I've been taking care of the flags for the last 7 or 8 years. I was asked about a year ago, volunteered to be part of the siren testing system. I love doing that. I love volunteering for the city. I've been to just about every fire EMS expo, Woodland Hills Days, flipping pancakes. Did the Santa Claus thing again this last weekend. Love the city. My wife and I told people when I leave, I'm going feet first, laying down, totally dead. So along with Tim. So that's a little bit about me again, what's on my resume and some stuff that's not.
Thanks.
All right, well, I'm Diane Hodnett, and we have almost owned up here 3 years. In February, it'll be 3 years, so maybe I'm a short timer compared to some of you, but I love Woodland Hills just as much as anyone else here. So we do have an absolutely wonderful city and a wonderful place. So my husband, Steve, and I, we kind of found Woodland Hills by accident ourselves. UDOT was purchasing our home in South Jordan for an expansion of Bangor Highway. And so we knew we'd be moving. And so we started looking, and Steve found a place up here in Woodland Hills. And I thought, oh, you don't look, it's going to be gone, And anyway, a year later, it was still here. And so we felt really fortunate to be able to move up here. We love the trees. We love the mountains. We love being out of the concrete jungle. And so that's what brought us here. And so professionally, I've worked for I used to work for Hewlett Packard, but I currently work for Berkadia. I'm in commercial real estate, and we sell apartments. We've sold more apartments in Utah than anyone else, over 4 billion. And I've been doing that for 15 years. While doing that, I've raised 3 children who have all gone on to get scholarships. 2 of them have graduated, 1 of them from college. 1 is currently working on his master's, and my youngest is on a mission currently, and all 3 have served missions. And so together we have worked really hard to be able to teach our children and, help them chase after the American dream. And so we feel lucky to be here in Woodland Hills and chasing after the American dream as well. So as far as some of the professional experience, so I do all the budgeting for all the apartments. I've also worked on RFPs, so requests for proposals with developers. I worked with many, many developers across Utah and worked in development of apartments and all of that, and budgeting and a lot of the processes, engineering firms, architecture firms, things like that. And then, so we have really embraced Woodland Hills. We love it. We now own chainsaws, and we both chainsaws. Never had that before. We own motorcycles. We owned motorcycles before, and we love riding our dirt bikes up and down our roads here. Let's see what else. Oh, I've rented a skid steer 3 times, and a front end, and another one, a front end, I don't know. Anyway, I'm really good at a skid steer now, so who knew? But I definitely jump in and get my hands dirty. I'm not afraid to learn anything, and I love to learn. So I really enjoy it. I'm good at numbers. I'm good at hard work. I'm really good at hard work. I have a lot of work clothes that are covered in all kinds of construction materials. So we've been working on renovating our home, and we love doing that. We've dug a lot of holes, and we've planted over 50 trees this summer. So we've also dug all the holes and put in our irrigation and things like that. We've helped our neighbor with the fire mitigation by getting fallen wood off of theirs. I've also been in a number of leadership positions in church callings for over 30 years. Stephen and I have been married. We'll be married 30 years this next year. Our next anniversary will be 30 years that we've been married, but been in leadership positions the entire time. I've also helped with the Woodland Hills Maple Festival, and then also the Halloween. I love helping. I help a lot of neighbors around. We have blown so much snow. Stephen hates it, but I'm like, there's another driveway. Let's drive our snow blower over there and see what we can do. We still have gas. We have to keep going. Let's keep snow blowing. So anyway, so we'll spend hours snow blowing on Sundays. So we do enjoy that. We love helping our neighbors, and I would love to be able to help Woodland Hills just continue to grow and be beautiful and and just embrace all the wonderful, beautiful things that Woodland Hills has to offer that is unique only to Woodland Hills. And I love that. So I'm hoping to be able to serve for those reasons.
Thank you, Diane. And Dan?
Yes, my name is Dan Roden. Father of four, married to my lovely wife, Bonnie. We've been married for 27 years. Been living in Woodland Hills for 18 years now. Moved in 2007. My first experience with city government in Woodland Hills was within, I think, 3 weeks of moving into our home. We had to have a water boil order. Bonnie was out with the kids, and next thing we know, we have Fox 13 in our house interviewing my wife about not being able to drink the water in the new city we moved into. So that was my first experience with Woodland Hills City. It's been a wonderful time. Like many here, we found Woodland Hills a little bit by accident. I remember getting off the Benjamin exit and telling my wife, "There's no way we're moving this far." We'd have to pack a lunch and stop to eat before we got in between. We're from the Sandy Draper area back when Draper was a one stoplight town, raised there by my family. We have four, like I said, we have 4 children, almost all of them out of the house now. I got one senior in high school. All of them have moved on. Well, some are probably going to be moving back, but we don't know how that goes. From a professional perspective, I've spent my entire career in technology. Graduated from the University of Utah with a degree in business administration with computer information systems emphasis. Immediately went into the marketing analytics world, where I've consulted with Fortune 10 and Fortune 50 companies around analytics practices for effectively managing their marketing efforts. Transitioned that into a role for 4 seasons at Major League Baseball, where I managed all the analytics for Major League Baseball for all 30 teams and 246 minor league teams. And that was a fun 4 years. I'm a big baseball guy. I played college baseball, so that was a dream come true until it wasn't. Learned how to really despise opening day and World Series really quickly when you're beholden to the request of executives to manage all that data that flows through those type of organizations. Immediately after that, I took an opportunity to consult with Raytheon Missile Systems out of Billerica, Massachusetts. That turned out to be pretty tough. It was leave the house on Sunday, get home on Friday, leaving my wife and 4 children for a week, and then coming home and wanting to go ski at Sundance on a Friday. A terrible husband. But that was a great experience managing the again, measurement of analytics of their production process of Patriot missile systems. So that was a really interesting, fun job to get security clearance. And I could tell you things, but I can't. It was a lot of fun. After that, I was looking for, my wife and I were both looking for an opportunity to come back into Utah and find employment here locally. Was reached out to by a tech entrepreneur here to start as a founding member of Domo, which is a business intelligence analytics property. I was fortunate to be part of two IPOs, both at Armature and then here at Domo. Quite an extensive, intensive role to be in when you start companies like that with big investment dollars. There's a lot of pressure to deliver. Irreplaceable opportunities to operate under that pressure, and then obviously to work with some of the top level companies in the world. In fact, just before coming here, was on a call with Cosmo Energy out of Japan, where I'm doing an analytics project for them to better effectively manage loyalty programs for their members for all their gas stations over in Japan. So it's been interesting. Truly enjoyed my career until I decided I needed to do my own thing. I had a hankering to start my own company, which I did back in 2019. Actually, it was 2020. Started my own tech company doing software development for college athletic departments to effectively manage their donor relationships and integration with ticketing systems, and have been the founder and CEO of that since 2020. So for anybody who started small businesses, you probably advise people just like me. Your dollars are precious. You have a lot of them. You have to be very judicious on how they're spent. And sometimes the answer is right on both sides. And sometimes you just kind of have to choose a path to where you're going to invest your money. The greatest learnings from being a small business owner is not only just pitching your own ideas, but the effective management of finances and your people. In my career over time, I've sat in a lot of executive rooms with a lot of different personalities. Mostly as a third party, which is always kind of a nice position to be in, but effectively managing the relationships of key decision makers, listening deeply before you speak has probably been the thing I've learned the most in my career. I'm usually a pretty boisterous, energetic, talkative person, but I found that there's places where it's much better just to listen before you speak. I want to thank all of you for your time and willingness to do this. This is, I will say, with some residents and some, the advent of social media is an awful thing for the most part. I've seen many people here have to endure unfair criticisms and some criticisms in a very public manner. I understand that's part of being a public official, especially in a small town where often we're integrating religious life and civic duty. And regardless of how tonight is and whoever is selected, that we can all work well together. And primarily, I look at things where my love for the city. This was one of the places, and my wife can corroborate the story. I bought the lot without telling my wife. We came up and we were looking at lots, and there was an ugly duckling lot that didn't have a lot of trees. I know I ruined the small meadow for half the people that have lived here a long time. But I ended up putting money down on the lot without really asking too many questions with Bonnie, and she's been a wonderful spouse to follow me up here, and we truly have enjoyed a very unique place. There's nothing better than having people who don't know Woodland Hills come and visit you, and just their reaction of where we are. And we drive up Woodland Hills Drive all the time to come up Summit Creek on your side, Tim, but that view coming up and seeing the mountains it's amazing that we don't look at it more often. I'm glad we don't. Keep your eyes on the road, but it is such a unique place. And with the uniqueness, and I think I mentioned this in my application, the uniqueness of our city also brings unique challenges. The things that we love about this unique city presents challenges, and not a lot of them are easily overcome. From tax revenue generation to fire mitigation. Thank you for everybody who volunteers our fire and EMS. I'm Santa Claus. There's no kids in here. I'm Santa Claus. Fire truck started that with the fire department back with Chris Helvey. I used to do that in Draper growing up. It was a very small town. We as kids, we'd get at our bus stop and Santa would come by and hand us a sack. There was Frank's Food Town, and we'd get an orange, some peanuts, and some really gross candy, but it was the best thing in the world. And I thought, being a small community, we should do that. And with the fire department being so instrumental to this area, why not showcase our amazing fire department in a fun tradition? And I think we're over 10 years now doing that. So everybody who does participate, I appreciate. Dora was the very first elf, and then we've got a new younger version of elf. Yeah. But it's great, and thanks for driving us around safe. The other involvement in the city, and I don't like to talk much about this. Most of my civic duties come primarily around just that. I know we're limited in resources. We talked about rocks coming across the road, and when we get these storms, I'm the one that will go out with the broom and sweep the street with a hand broom and a wheelbarrow. I've done that many times. I finally got tired of doing that. Was wearing my brooms down. I saw that we had a sweeper, so I reached out, the old sweeper. I reached out to Corbett at the time. I said, "Do you mind if I grab the sweet sweeper?" He said, "Yeah, no problem, but there's no brakes." So I learned how to use the actual sweeping implement to slow myself as I went down hills. But there's just things that I think all of us can do as members of this community where we can. And I don't know who watches this. It might just be us in this room. But if anybody sees something that can be done that they can do, I would highly recommend doing it. It does make you feel a little bit more connected to the community. I've been involved with Woodland Hills Days. We shared Woodland Hills Days with my wife and I. We had a great time doing that. It was quite a project. Janet gave us a lot of support in doing that. And then probably this is my last thing. This is what probably compelled me the most. This happened 10 years ago this month. One of our neighbors took his own life in his home. And it was on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Some of you might remember that. And I remember seeing all of our neighbors out, and the EMS was there. And so we were asking kind of our neighbors, and everyone was in tears, and they found out what had happened. And I remember seeing our EMS teams going in and out of that home, and it was actually at Mayor Winter's old house. And there's not a path, a path that goes into the front. And I knew the life flight was coming. There was no way they were going to be able to move the body. And so I ran and I grabbed thinking of snow blowers. Ran and grabbed my snow blower, and I just started clearing a path for that group in the EMS. And as I finished that up, I won't mention his name, but one of our EMS members came out. And you could tell he was holding it together because there were people in there. And as soon as he stepped out on that porch, he just started sobbing. And I thought, what a role to have in this community on that day that's supposed to be such a day of anticipation and excitement. And to see him, knowing he was a volunteer, he just put himself through, and how it will probably change his day for his family. And I thought that was an amazing show of support. And it was at that moment where I had made decision, the things that I can do, I should do, as far as volunteers. So that's really why I'm here, is just an extension of that civic duty. I think that's why all of us are here today. So I appreciate everyone being here, and that's me.
Okay, thank you. And I really appreciate all the comments. I don't have a vote in tonight's decision, but as I was listening to each of you, I feel very blessed that we have such qualified people that are willing to step up and serve. So whatever the outcome, I think that we are going to be very well served by whoever's selected tonight. So with that, we are going to go in a series of questions. So we'll start with Carrie, and then we'll work our way around, and with Brian. Brian's got a two-part question, and then we'll work our way back, and we'll just maintain the order of Tim, Mike, Diane, and Dan.
Do we have a time limit on answers? We probably should.
I mean, I don't like, just keep it as succinct as you can. I don't want to manage a clock. I think that's disruptive. So just keep it succinct if you can.
No, I also am impressed with everything that you sent us, your resumes, your reasons, and I think you're all right. I mean, I've lived here 35 years, and you don't choose Woodland Hills, it chooses you. And I think I got that from all of you, that you recognize really what our city is. Now, tonight is not an election. It is a job interview. We are fulfilling a seat, an appointment for 2 years. And so it's a little bit different reasoning in the questions that we ask you. And so my question has to do with your commitment and your capacity to serve. Serving on the council does require a lot of time. It's not just 2 meetings a month. We have assignments that may be in the city. We have assignments on the county level. We sit on different boards throughout the county. And in some cases, you might sit on committees at the state level. We have last legislative session, we had 350 bills in the legislature that affected municipal government. So we have to keep an eye on those because you don't know what's going to happen. Not all of them pass, thank goodness. Some of them we work for, some of them we work against. I spend a lot of time at the Capitol with that. So serving, then I want to know, one, how will you manage those demands alongside your other responsibilities that you have? We are a small city. We don't get paid for our gas and our time away from other things. We do that as part of our volunteer. And then what motivates you to serve in public office more than that you just love Woodland Hills? I've read over all your resumes. I see your qualifications. That's in this job interview that we're giving you tonight. We're looking at your qualifications and how does that fit the needs of our city? So although we love all of you and we appreciate everything you've all done, it really is a job interview and we need to fill some needs in the city. And so I'd like you to tell me that motivation as you know the needs of our city with regards to those assignments, your time, preparation, and engagement. So
Okay, take it away.
So from a capacity standpoint, I try to be pretty frank that the first 6 months would be difficult. So being a bishop in Mary Student Ward is kind of almost a half-time job at times. If there was a period of the year that would be better, it is the January through April timeframe. There's certain responsibilities in the last 3 months of the year, and I just completed all but a few of those Sunday. And so it will calm a little bit, but there's always needs, and so it will be a little difficult. I do have the luxury of not needing as much sleep as most people. And so that's how I've, managed to do church service and run a firm at the same time. So I would figure it out. I've never not figured it out. And so sometimes, I have to figure out priorities, and I may need a little patience in the first 6 months, but I'm looking at this more from a long term. If I was choosing a time, I'd start July 1st, but I wouldn't choose that. So from a standpoint of why serving, besides loving the community, I believe I understand leadership and what it takes. I've seen so many different organizations, much like Dan, so many different leadership styles, the way organizations are run. So I bring a different perspective that I think is helpful. We try to take best practices from one industry to the next. And I think there's probably some practices out there that could be helpful here. At the same time, I'm really appreciative of everything that has been done by you and prior leaders. And I think there's a perfect example of what I was talking about. Humble, just outstanding people here in the city. I'm glad I'm not you guys tonight, frankly. I just sat here just going, wow, good luck. So also accomplished, and the city's full of this type of person. It's a special place. So I've always felt like I would at some point do something in terms of civic service. There hasn't been an opportunity because of other things that were chosen for me or was asked to do from a religious standpoint.
So you'd be willing to serve on either?
Yes.
I mean, we have for sure the city and the county have been given, and sometimes the state. And so just making sure that you're understanding what that role is.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, Mike?
Well, I shared already that I've gotten 3 college degrees while working full-time. I also was a DCFS manager and was serving in a leadership capacity in the church. I was a bishop at the time. So similarly, you just make it work somehow. I've made it work, again, with the support of my wonderful wife, of 39 consecutive years. Consecutive, that's important. As far as why I want to serve in the council, I've thought about what I could add. And as I put in my application, I think I can add both depth and breadth. I come with the hard skills of business management, having started and run my own businesses from scratch on several occasions, and the soft skills of working with people and working with people under horrible situations, circumstances. If you consider what this Children's Justice Center does, what the Utah court system does, and what DCFS does, it's never a happy occasion. In my ability to meet with people under those conditions, find common ground, have a civil conversation and talk about things that people are very emotional about, very heated about. I think would add that to the council based on my years of experience. And again, being able to gain consensus no matter what the situation is, and making sure everybody feels heard who wants to be heard.
Thank you.
All right, so for me, I've been, doing the same thing for 15 years. I feel I have it really dialed in, and I know what I'm doing well professionally. I really have a lot of time to give. My children are grown. I'm an empty nester. I really want more to do. I really want things to fill my time with. So I really want to be able to serve. And if I don't do this, I need to go do something else. I've actually thought about doing foster children, but there are so many emotional things involved in it and everything. I just want to be careful as I approach that, because it is a really big commitment, and especially to the children involved in being able to do that. As a working mother and children that were in sports and volunteering on all the sports and being there and involved in everything, I know how to manage my time really well. I too work with very little sleep. So my husband always asks, do you ever sleep? I'm like, I'm good. I don't need sleep. So anyway, I just have a really high energy level. And so I really just like to be really involved and do things. And I really want something more to do right now in my life. Just to kind of fulfill that empty nest feeling that I'm having. And then what it motivates you to serve. Just, I really, really want to be able to connect with people, and we have such a wonderful city. I'd love to be able to really get involved with all of our residents and help participate with, get people to volunteer. We had a really low voter turnout, and we need to get involved with all of our friends and our family and our residents here, like everyone that lives here. We need to just get them more involved. And so, just really encouraging participation with everyone that lives here and seeing how we can all contribute and stuff. Like, it feels so great when we're at Woodland Days Hills having pancakes and everyone's there and, we get to spend time together. I just really want to create more of that.
Me,
Perfect.
as far as the demands, full disclosure as well, I travel for my job. Being a small business owner, you find yourself on the road, sometimes in inopportune times. But I assume we leverage Zoom and other technologies we seem to manage through. I do a lot of very important calls through Zoom, and I would imagine that I'd be able to effectively do the city's business that way as well if I'm on the road. As far as extension of our outreach into other, I don't have a lot of visibility into exactly what that means as far as time and things of that nature. Very willing to invest that time. I think all of us are kind of in a position now to where we have not a lot of responsibilities at home with children and those type of things. So we're, my evenings are usually scrolling phones with my wife scrolling her phone. So we got plenty of time to engage. So I'm not concerned around the demand other than the travel. The other thing, as far as my motivation, I think I shared that story. That was the genesis and the catalyst of my desire to serve. I was raised by a very, patriotic family, but as far as just our involvement in your local community as being a huge part of carrying our family name. So it's important to me. So that's my primary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, are you okay if I shift the order one each time so that Tim doesn't have to go first in the question? Or
I'm just copying what Tim says.
That's a great idea.
can I start with Michael?
Yeah.
Yeah. and-
Whatever you want.
No, that's
each time
fine.
it
If
just
there's
starts with
a
the next
reason,
person.
let's do that. That's fine.
I know how much fun it is to always have to answer first. So starting with you, Michael. I'm asking my questions also from the two different hats. One is as I guess it's my seat that you're potentially going to take over, but I'll ask more from the executive side. Because three of you are going to leave either relieved or disappointed, pending. But what I want to know is if you are not selected, in what capacities would you be willing to still get involved and assist the city? Because one of the things that we need the most is help and volunteers, right? We have limited resources, but also, like many of you have said, that engagement, it deepens our roots in the community. So if not selected, appointed, how would you be willing to continue to serve or get more involved with serving in this community?
Other than eating the leftovers from the events, I think they're talking about something. Just to clarify that.
Yes.
I'm always available for that.
Okay.
Again, I'm open to anything. I really am. I'd be happy to serve on committees. I've asked to serve on different committees in the city and haven't been granted that opportunity. So I'm always happy to serve on committees. I'm happy to participate in different events. I'll talk to any one of you on any particular topic at any point in time. I have a ton of experience, as I've stated, and I'm happy to share that with any member of the council or the entire council, whenever it's needed. So being elected doesn't mean that I disappear, or if I'm not elected, or appointed, excuse me. Not being appointed doesn't mean I'm going to disappear.
Yeah, I would be totally happy. I'd love to be on probably the Parks and Trails, I think. I love that. If I'm not, on the council, but I'm already on Woodland Hill State, or excuse me, not Woodland Hill States, on the Maple Festival. So I'm already helping with that. And so, yeah, I'll keep volunteering like I am, and I'd love to be on a committee. No problem at all. I'd be very happy to do that.
Me? I'll keep sweeping streets. If I need to. I saw some really nice new equipment in there and just nice streets. I'd love to get behind the skid steer. Those are the best things in the
They're a
world.
lot of fun.
No, but that's quite honestly the case. I really see if there's an opportunity to do, I find that it's just, especially in the volunteer world, if you just identify, maybe make your checks to make sure it's okay, and then just go do. I think that's the biggest thing. And I think a lot of doers, regardless of whether you have an official position to do it or not, as long as you have the appropriate approval to do it, I think that's the lift that I'll continue to do.
The finance committee is probably an obvious one, so I'd be happy to help on that one. Or some other kind of infrastructure committee. We're making decisions about resource management or building or something like that, I think is probably what would most interest me. I'd probably ask for a July 1st kind of a start date if that were. So, but yes, I would love, and I stated in my application that whoever's selected has my 100% support. There's so much talent here, so you can't go wrong.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna start. Yeah, okay. So when you're on city council, a lot of the decisions that we make, we create policy and it affects the future of our community. So this is a question that was asked of me when I was campaigning, and I thought it was a really good question. I want to know, what is your vision for the future of Woodland Hills?
Okay, so it was super cool to see what was presented earlier with all the trails. And like, you know, we're a small city, we have kind of struggle with revenue and things like that. So really, how do we create revenue? And so like the fact that we have like all of these trails going and the possibility of trails is fantastic, right? But like getting some events, like if we can do some kind of events that people like, Woodland Hills is something really special. It just is. And so like getting some events that get people to see it, you know, and figuring out how we can create some revenue with some events, I think would be really fantastic for the city. Just because we are so small, and it would kind of, you know, make it so maybe we have a little bit better budget for some of the things that we need, because it's really important that we take care of our roads and that we keep them ice-free in the winter, you know, so those are really important needs that we have as a city and that we always need to fund. Policy affects the future, and it just would be great to be able to do events that'll end up helping us in the future.
Me? Echo all that, by the way. I think that's great. How many times have you been up to Woodland Hills Park and you're up there by yourself? You're like, this might be the best looking park in the world as far as view. Why we don't do more at the park? But I can tell you why, because half the city would be like, oh, it brings too much traffic up. So, you know, this is just kind of the way we work. In a small community. As far as vision for Woodland Hills, as I mentioned, is very unique. We have some challenges, particularly on the revenue side. There are potential answers out there that are going to be impactful to others in different ways. But the other component that I think about the vision of Woodland Hills is, as I mentioned, I grew up in Draper, Utah, when it was literally a one street stoplight. I remember wishing we could have at least one house that had 2 stories in it. But as it began to grow and develop, it was amazing how quickly everybody who wanted the additional benefits of what that development would bring quickly turned against that development. And so there's a real balance that has to be made for a community like ours. Most of us moved here not because we were close to Costco. Most of us moved here not because it was convenient to spend 40 minutes round trip to get milk. We moved here because it is a unique place, and I think the preservation of that is going to be key. But I also realize that we can't, that there are challenges. We're going to have, the growth will come, and how we're going to be surrounded by it and how it's going to impact us and back and forth are going to be things that we're going to have to, those are tough decisions. Those are things that are going to be important for us to be able to effectively manage. And when I say that, I mean effectively manage not only as a city, but have also effectively managed the way that our members feel about it. Like I said, we've been in a lot of meetings where there's two wrong answers or two right answers, or maybe one or the other, but there's usually reasoning behind all of them that have pretty good effect, that could be argued either way. And I think that's going to really be what's going to set Woodland Hills vision apart, is how can we retain as much as possible of why we all live here, but knowing what's coming, and doing a very effective job at managing that to the benefit of the city the best we know how, and reduce the negative impacts, but open the floodgates for anything that's positive that can increase our budgets, and our state of our livelihood.
Certainly, when you're playing behind from a finance standpoint, it's hard. So to answer that question, if the finances are not in order, prepared for the future and for hiccups that come along the way, it's tough to be doing much beyond that. So that's, clearly establishing the finances so that they're, and Dan mentioned this, so that we're in a good place. I've been really impressed with the pursuit of federal and state funds and helping our community. That seems like that's been a real focus of the council and the executive branch here. When we first moved here, we met Ted Hanks, and at the time, people said, "Oh, he's maybe not real happy," or things like that. And we happened to meet him, and we found him just delightful. He became a friend of ours, and so we spent a lot of time at his house, and our girls got to know him. And he was like one of the originals. He was around from the beginning, and so to hear some of the history of this place was really inspiring. When it was kind of small and everybody knew each other, and everybody. I had one of the friends that lives on the other side of the city talked about how he wanted everybody waving again because it used to be like that. So my vision would be, how do we maintain the old Woodland Hills while it grows and still connect people when people do want to stay in their houses? So that would be my vision, is policy that financially lets us make choices, and then second, how do we maintain the history, and then how do we when people move here, help them understand what this place is about, and create an environment where they want to maintain that.
I love the question. One of the reasons I decided to run for council was, in the last couple of years especially, but all the time I've lived here, I've heard comments about 10 years ago the council made a decision, and this is why we're living with it now, or 20 years ago the council made a decision, and we're living with that now. And so part of my vision for the city would be to plan further out, plan 20, 30, 40 years out, looking at what the ramifications are of any decision we make. Sure, we have needs today. We've got infrastructure needs today. What's it look like to maintain that infrastructure again 10 or 20 years from now? I think potentially some of the things we're dealing with is because there was a lack of foresight 20 years ago, 10 years ago. So part of my vision would be to obviously look at the finances, create revenue. I've got experience doing grant writing and RFPs and things like that. I think the idea of getting matching funds from any other source is great. Love the idea of bringing in funds, but then using those funds to make sure that we're planning not just for this year or next year, or the next 5 years, but 20, 30 years out, so that we can maintain who we are as a city. In fact, the platform, one part of the platform I ran on was rooted in tradition and focused on the future. And I still believe that strongly, that we want to maintain who we are as we grow. And as we don't have a lot of choice in that growth simply because of what's happening around us, but to manage that appropriately for the city so we can be who we are and again, maintain who we are into the future, way beyond any of the time any of us are going to be here.
Okay. Wow, this is fun. Even
Glad it's fun for you.
even after your opening statements, I was ready to can 4 people up here. And work with you, throw all procedures out the window. We have the greatest people in this city. I want a real short answer, and I don't know who I start with.
You start.
Probably Dan. Okay. If you felt strongly about an issue, how would you convince others to vote with you?
All on the council.
Yeah.
I believe the best way to effectively persuade is with information and transparency, and clearly state the reasons for which not only you're advocating for, but that you do understand that there is going to be opposition to your position, and to explain why that opposition is that your pro stance is always above level, above that. I think that's probably one of the most difficult things to do as people is We all have our own kind of vision of the way things were. I think that most everybody thinks they're always right, for the most part. One thing that's really unique about being a council member is we do have our own opinions, but at the same time, we know that we're representative of a greater body. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of participation in our meetings. You guys have probably had a lot of empty meetings. And then when decisions are made, maybe some are poor based on those decisions. So I think effective communication and transparency of where I stand and why I made that decision is probably going to be the most important thing. And then to do it in a demeanor that is respectful for everybody involved.
Thank you.
I always want to know the why behind everything. And so I figure if I can explain that well, and then listen and listen and listen and get other perspectives and then try to persuade if I feel strongly. In the firm, if I ever have to say, I'm the managing partner, that's the decision, I consider that a failure. I've had to do that a couple of times in the last 18 months. I can remember those times. I hated them. You do have to do it on occasion. So there are times when you simply have to, as the leader, have to make a decision on the council. That's not the same. That might be for the mayor, potentially has to do something like that at times. But inspiring and helping people understand the whys and the impacts and why it's important is how I'd approach it. And if you still feel strongly and we're not to that place, then I think you've got to take time and do some more listening and some more research and more discussion until there is a better consensus. I don't know how often it's a 5-0, you all agree on something. I doubt that happens very often, which is great. That's different. You're the problem.
Did you see how I looked at him?
Yeah. So I think that's great. We have difference of thought, and yet at the same time, if we're willing to listen, we'll probably come up with a better answer than what I currently think is the best answer right now. If I listen, there's probably some nuances to that that's actually even better.
Okay, so for me, I would probably seek to understand if it was someone that had a strong disagreement from what I had, I would seek to understand why it is that they feel that way. So I would really seek to understand why they're feeling that way. And then try to find common ground and try to see if we have some kind of common greater good that we could both agree to in the future. So in my profession, we're selling multi-million-dollar, 50 to 100 and plus million-dollar apartment complexes. We're dealing with people with very large egos. We have to find a way for them to be able to agree and to come to concessions and what is their ultimate goal. So really, I would be seeking to find out what is the ultimate goal and if we could finally get to the same agreement there in the ultimate goal.
Hate to be redundant. I'm a big fan of facts and data. I'm a numbers guy in my heart. And one of the things I have found most useful outside of facts and data is listening to people. Currently, I'm a marriage family therapist, spend a lot of my time telling husbands and wives, just listen to each other. Listen to what they're saying, respect what they're saying. Try to recognize that there's value in what they're seeing and how they're seeing things. So that's how I would approach it, is everybody's opinion has value. And it's just a matter of trying to figure out where the middle ground, if there is middle ground available. But most people are a lot more amenable to changing their opinion once they feel heard. And so that would be a big part of what I would do, is make sure that people feel heard.
Okay, so first, thank all of you for submitting your applications. I can't tell you how it felt to me as those applications came in and Jody sent those to us. It really felt good to see your applications come in and be able to read them and see the quality that we have that was going to come here tonight. It also sucked because that means I had to choose from 4 great people here, right? So like has been said, 3 of you are going to walk away not happy, I think. And the other person's going to hate me later. And so I'm going to make it even worse. I'm like Carrie said, I look at this not as an election. And I got really to thinking about that today as I was talking to the city staff. This is more of I really started to look at this as more of a application for employment. Now, I've hired hundreds and hundreds and interviewed thousands of people over my career. And there's always those questions that everybody hates. And I hate them. But there's a couple of questions, and that's why I asked to be in this position. I'm going to ask my 2 questions in a row. Everybody's going to answer one, and you got to go back and answer the second one. It's one of those stupid HR questions, right? And you all know this. You all been in business long enough to know these stupid HR questions, right? There's a lot of them I ask, but there's 2 that I think are the most important for me to understand you. And so I'm going to ask, the first one's going to be quick. Second one, maybe not so quick. So, who's first on this one? Is it Tim? Tim, back to Tim. What's your greatest weakness? Don't you hate those questions?
Yeah.
Aren't they awful?
Is that your second question?
No.
Now, this is like GD in the bottle. Don't mess yourself up.
You know, I've come to believe that about every quality we have has positives and weaknesses to it. I mean, a decisive person, that's a positive, and yet you might be too quick to make a decision. If you are generous, I've seen people, you know, give in when they shouldn't give in. So I don't, that is a tough question. I don't ask that question, by the way, Brian, when I'm interviewing people, just for the record. But
That's HR's job.
yeah, that's right. I am HR. So I guess I'll say, because I need to answer this question. I can get pretty singly focused at time when there's a problem, and maybe get off balance with life and other things. So I have had to find balance by taking trips and vacations. Because I sometimes just get completely into an issue to solve that. And it's hard to, maybe I'll ignore people I shouldn't ignore at times.
Perfect. Mike?
There's so many to choose from. I would probably suggest that my greatest weakness is, anyway, if I think there's a perceived injustice, I sometimes get myopic, where I just can't see all the forest for the trees if I think somebody's being harmed. It's probably a result of my years of working with the disenfranchised, but I've seen it in the juvenile courts. I've seen it all over the place. When somebody's not being treated right, I just get a little myopic, a little upset, because I just don't think that's right. So that's probably one of my greatest weaknesses.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, like Tim said, there's like the yin and yang of every good side. There's a bad side, right? Like you can always too much. So it's really hard. My greatest weakness is like, I probably expect a lot. So I give a lot, I expect a lot. And my husband has to put up with me expecting a lot from him. So that's short and sweet.
Perfect. Ben?
I talked about mine. It's funny you asked this. We actually had a conversation about awful HR questions. Primarily because the reason that I'm bringing this up is it's something I identified earlier this year, and I've actually been working on it, and I talked about it, is I'm usually make up my mind pretty quickly on things where I think I'm the expert in the space. And I've really tried to focus on listening more and being more deliberate before I speak. That is definitely one of my biggest weaknesses. Ask almost anyone. I do have an opinion that will come out quickly. And so I've deliberately tried to focus on listening more and speaking a little bit slower, a little bit less hasty. So apologies in advance if I give a blurted answer.
I feel like we should verify that with the speed.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back around and you kind of answered.
Yeah.
And by the way, Diane, I don't know if you should feel proud or not, but the rest of these people I know from the fire department that are sitting next to you, I've met them all through the fire department in one way or another, and not you. So what are you doing about it? And that's really, I don't really care what your biggest weakness is. Mine is time management. I suck. I get blind, blinders on what are you doing about it? That's what I really want to know. That's really what matters in this question.
Do you want me to answer it again?
Yes.
Okay.
If you want to.
It really is, it's a very concerted effort. I'm doing it almost daily before every meeting that I have. I basically have to remind myself to try and speak last, to listen with more, and then ask probing questions has helped me a lot, rather than just providing an answer of what I think. I usually am I'm finding more success asking probing questions before I do another analysis in my head before I respond. So that's been very helpful, actually.
Great. I put you ahead of, Mike was actually supposed to go.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
We'll skip around a little.
Similarly, it's becoming aware of it. I've tried to become more and more aware of it. And similarly, I've learned to ask questions, especially of people who I think are not of the same opinion as I am, because I want that opposite opinion. There's value to me in seeking somebody else's opinion who just doesn't see things my way. Because then potentially I can be a little less myopic and a little more amenable to talking about the issues more fully.
So mine, it was high expectations, right? So I'm being okay with less. Like, no matter what somebody gives or whatever, we're trying to get people to, work together or whatever. If it's a little less, that's okay.
For me, I would say that I'm trying to always look ahead in the future. So whether it's a client or the firm or family, I'm always looking at the future to say what is likely to hit us next. Because if I can avoid those times where I get singly focused, I can stay more balanced. And so some of it we can't avoid. There are things that are going to hit our families, our companies, our city, life. Things change, the economy changes, the conditions change, a storm hits, whatever it might be. But there's a lot of it that's self-inflicted because of lack of preparation. So regardless of what the role is, I'm just trying to look ahead to the future and see if I can avoid that so we can try to eliminate as many of those things as possible. We can't eliminate all of them. We can eliminate some of them.
Thank you.
Okay, back to you, Doral.
Here's what I want to do with the mayor's permission. I don't want to ask you another question. I want you each to take 15 seconds when we're all done and say what you want to say. So I'll defer to Janet now, if that's okay, Mayor.
Yeah, please.
Thank you.
Okay. So I want to know, what was your biggest failure and what did you learn from it? And where are we starting? I've lost track.
I think it's Mike again.
Biggest failure. That's how you define failure.
It's how you define failure.
Yeah. Lots of disappointments. I'm trying to figure out if any of those are failures. On some level, I would consider it a failure. I spent 8 years pursuing a PhD. That was my plan, was to get a PhD. It was the only place in the country at the time that was fully accredited. I spent 8 years doing all the classwork while I was working full time. Some of it while serving in leadership capacities, just cranking it out class at a time. And had no idea until a month before I was ready to start. I had all the approvals I need. Anybody who knows you need the Institutional Review Board permission to go, to be able to deal with human subjects. I was going to work with foster youth and had all this stuff ready to go. And I got a call from the university that said, your time's up. I said, what do you mean my time's up? They said, your time's up. You have to complete this within so many years and your time's up. And I thought, what? Anyway, so turns out I don't have a PhD. Is that a failure or I consider it a failure. I should have been more aware of what the time frame was. I should have been more mindful of what was going on and that there was a time limit. I had no idea there was a time limit. So here I am today without my PhD.
For me, so I don't look too much at failures. I look at learning from it. So I think the biggest failure in my life is if I just stopped trying. I want to die trying everything and giving my all to everything. I want to know that I didn't waste time in this precious amount of time that we have on this beautiful earth and in this beautiful city, whatever. I just want to live to the fullest. So I would be a failure if I wasn't trying. And I feel like I have tried a lot of different crazy things, and there's hurt feelings, you know, you get hurt feelings over different things, or you might have disappointments or plans change. But I wouldn't call them failures because I get to learn from all of them. And I love learning and growing. And as long as I can learn and grow, I'm not failing. And so that's about it for me.
That's great. Thank you. Dan?
I'm gonna bifurcate these into two. Personal failures is probably with, as my kids are older, I think about maybe some misses I had with my kids. And my wife who's here, she's got a list. Just come look at our double ovens I installed 2 years ago that still aren't fitted. Anyway, but then also, one of my biggest failures right now is I'm on the cusp of failure as a small business owner. I'm one bad decision away from, you know, this. There's almost a constant anxiety of what I call imposter syndrome, where you wake up and you're just like, am I really the right person that should be doing this? I don't know if I have the skill set to do this. I don't know if I have the education to do this. I would say probably my biggest failure is letting that imposter syndrome set in every once in a while. I mean, there's days when I say I should probably just hang this up. This isn't working, or this should be better. Somebody else would be better doing this. Sometimes that wins. Diane mentioned about keep fighting, and I think that's a very good theme. I think one of the biggest failures we have is really doubting ourselves to the point to where we won't try. So my biggest failure right now is sometimes I've let that win in my professional career. It's hurt.
I'll give you a vulnerable, singular event, but it was a night that I had to come home and talk to Hillary. It was impacted by the Great Recession. I had a company that when the stock market crashed, I lost over 50% of revenue overnight. Spent the next 2.5 years battling to reduce costs, try to get revenues up. My partner was doing everything he could. And so we decided one evening after everybody left to chat, and he just said, I pulled every trigger I pulled in the past. It was an online company, doesn't work anymore. And we can't figure it out. So could not get the revenues over the costs. And so it was time to sell the company. But we had financed, to buy a lot of product, and I was on that, right? So I had to come home that night and tell Hillary that we were assuming back a pretty good size amount of financing that was with the company. I felt like a failure, felt like a failed business person. I'm not sure the imposter syndrome was exactly that night, but I certainly know what you're talking about. It's constant. But at the end of the day, I looked at that as the most important education I received for what I do now, because I help small businesses. They feel like Dan, what he just described, all the time. And I remember one particular day, there were 3 clients about ready to jump off a cliff. They thought everything was caving in. I know now that there's always a way out. And so now I can help them have the confidence, help them make good decisions. Sometimes it takes a little bit, but the sky's not falling. There's always a solution. And I have the empathy for the person that's going through that. So my clients, when they go through those moments, I've lived through it. When we hire a new fractional CFO, if they haven't had a failure, if they've never worried about making payroll for their company, if they've never made a bad mistake and lost a lot of money, if they haven't had something like that, we just are not interested in them. They have to have that. Otherwise, they have no way of having empathy for their clients.
Tim, you were supposed to share one of your failures, not mine.
I must be a fractional CFO.
I'm not a fractional CFO. But yeah, I feel for you there. That sounded just like my story. My question, so you guys, maybe a little ignorantly, are about to jump into a really exciting, fun thing. 99.9% of the time, that's a very true statement. There is that 0.1% of the time where you just sit there and think, we can't win. no matter what we do, we cannot win because, you know, the mobs have mounted and the pitchforks and torches are coming, and it's all our fault. And, you know, some of you have mentioned, you know, we get a lot of love notes on social media. So what I want very succinctly, because I'm kind of asking this in two approaches, how succinctly can you answer this question, but also in a way that expresses in your life, give me an example of a time when you've had to build a bridge with somebody who adamantly opposed you to a point of maybe even aggression, if you have that type of an experience. And I believe we're who?
It's Dan.
Maybe Diane.
Diane. Ooh, wow, okay. Sorry,
It's a
I was
rough
really
one
thinking
to-
about that. Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever had someone like so adamantly oppose me. I mean, maybe, you know, there's definitely lots of times I've had disagreements with people and stuff. There's lots of agreements. I just had a disagreement with somebody at work today, you know, so, but how do I, like, the example, like, you know, people are emotional. So I just try to stay real level-headed. Like, you know, if I'm getting emotional, maybe I need to walk out and take a break or something. Like I give myself space until I can try to be sane again or something. You know, I think other people need space to be able to grapple with their emotions and get things together. And, you know, let's take a break or whatever until we figure this out. And then let's talk about it, you know, but I've worked through like any time I've had a disagreement with people. My eldest sister that has passed away, she beat the crap out of me when I was a kid and broke my ribs. And we became best friends, and she died of a brain encephalitis in 2010. And that broke my heart because she was my best friend. But I just worked through things. I worked through everything in life. I'm kind of like, won't stop working.
My turn. I would say that I think my general nature is to try and be as amicable as possible in almost every situation. It's served me well. Lover, not a fighter, definitely. And knew that very young. Always the one at the schoolyard to try and make amends and make people comfortable around each other, and never thrown a fist in my life. Never been in a fight in my life. Primarily because I don't see a lot of value in it, and primarily because I usually try and avoid those situations. But in the case of you know, just today, had a really awkward conversation with a $7 million deal that I messed up on, and I took a lot of heat for it, and a lot of it wasn't true, and it wasn't me, and I found that. It's difficult taking blame for things that aren't your responsibility. In that call, I fell on the sword a few times, but at the same time, there were times when things were said untrue, specific around my involvement, that I immediately just, I gave them consolation that that's probably how it was perceived, but then I had data and facts to prove, and email threads and all sorts of stuff to say this is how I tried to mitigate it. If you still feel it's my fault, though, you know, I respect that opinion, but usually I can return a rhetorical with, you know, or a question with some data and some fact, and then when the time is right, if it is your fault, I think one of the best ways to offset aggression is to admit mistakes and recommit to do well. And I think for the most part, that's a pretty good formula.
I'll try to answer this quickly. I think it's my turn. Try to answer this quickly. I had a client that was involved with series of lawsuits for about 6 years. They just completely flat, no growth. And the second that they were done, his creativity started again and his company took off. And it was a demonstration of what that does to you, right? I spent a lot of time pondering this. I turned the application in a few hours before the deadline. because of that, because I'm like, do I really want to walk into the line of fire? No, I really don't. I don't like, I'd rather have good conversations that are healthy and we can make some progress. The only person I know that's pursued me to that, like that felt that way was 20 plus years ago. And unfortunately it didn't get resolved. I took the steps that I thought I could do, but I had to live with the fact that it wasn't going to get resolved. So it can't always get resolved. More recently, there's times where there's kind of a disagreement, and I look at it and say, well, how do we put all of us in the best position? What do you need? If you're unhappy and you need to go do something else, let's help you get to that other place so that we can both allow our creativity to flourish, because there's no sense in, it's such a drain on resources to be in conflict.
Great, thank you. All right.
Did Michael get to answer that?
Yeah, I don't think Michael's answered it.
So again, my almost 20 years with DCFS, just about every conversation was a battle for one reason or another. And you just learn to listen to people to try to figure out how to make it doable for them. What would make this less painful for them? Trying to build those bridges, because in the case of DCFS, the bridge had to be built. And the court was going to dictate how that bridge was going to be built. So my role, whether as a social worker, supervisor, or manager, was to try to mitigate the pain of that bridge building and make the relationship workable, so that as we worked together between workers and families, that it was a good working relationship. Because if you didn't have that, the kids were never going to go home, and that was not the purpose of why we were doing what we were doing. Share a quick anecdote. Personally, I had a roof put on my home 15 years ago or so. Was quoted a price by the roofer to have the tear off done. The guys came to do the tear off and said, you need to pay us. And the contractor told me that. I said, great. And he said, it's this much money. And I thought, no, it's not. He quoted me. He basically said it was twice what the roofer told me it was going to be. So I called the roofer and I said, this is what happened. Would you come over and we'll just mitigate this? So he came over. It was his contractor, subcontractor. He chatted with the guy. He chatted with me and I said, what can I do to make this right? And he said, pay him what he's asking for. So I did, because that was the best way to take care of that situation. I didn't want to put the roofer in jeopardy. I didn't want to damage that relationship. It was $500 or $600 difference. And I thought, let's just take care of this way.
Hey, Carrie, last question.
Wow. This is really going to be hard. You are all really good candidates, and whether it's the actual job or your philosophy or your vision or how you handle problems, it's really impressive. Most of the time things are okay, but we're in a little town, so it is difficult when these are your neighbors and your friends and people you go to church with, and people, all of us now have older kids, but some of our residents, it's their kids play together and they're on sports teams together. And so it can make it really difficult to navigate and balance all of that. So mine is kind of a two-part question also for this last one. One, it's understanding the role in governance is basically, and then your strategic thinking. You all have business experience, and so I think you are critical thinkers, strategic thinkers, and I appreciate that with you. So one of the things is, what do you believe the proper role of the city council is, and how does it differ from city administration? One's governance and one is administration. And in that, how do you think you balance the short-term pressures, which we kind of just talked about, with the long-term fiscal or infrastructure needs our city has? There are some things that the administration will say, we need this, and yet the governance part says, how do we pay for it? So basically, I'll recap that a little bit. Your belief in your role as a city council member differing from administration, and how do you balance the short-term pressures, meaning the residents, with long-term fiscal and infrastructure needs? And I can't remember who goes first.
Dan.
I'll take. Okay, I'm new to city government, so I can't honestly answer with 100% positivity that I completely understand all the roles that I'm going to be asked to perform as a member of the city council. However, I do understand there is a difference between administration And then I would say you brought up strategy. A lot of the things we are asked probably most likely as a city council is to do kind of what Mike said, is to look beyond. There are needs, there are broken pipes, there are water pipes, there are wells that need to be addressed, there are plows that need to be fixed. Those need quick analytical thinking around probably a huge base of just logic and reason of whether we're going to be able to execute those and the direct impact that those short-term decisions have. From a more strategic perspective, I think there is a lot more discovery that happens in that type of role as a council member when you are looking at strategy. Like we just had a great presentation on trails. I personally would probably have that near the bottom of my list as far as the things that I think the city needs right now. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not something that the community would like to have in the future, and how we could fund that. And if it makes sense, then that's great to solve that with a whether it be a grant or whatever it might be. Strategy for me, or the administration of a role, I think comes around two people. Number one is how you effectively communicate with your membership and how you work together as a team. And then secondly, I think I think a lot of decisions are made with maybe in the shadows a little bit. And what I mean by that is I think sometimes people want to go along, or they don't want to ask enough questions because they don't want to be perceived as unprepared or not qualified to make a proper answer. I think the city's council's responsibility is to be honest with each other and admit when you need more time to make discovery and to make better decisions. And I think it's fair from an administrative perspective, or from a strategic perspective, to always require all the information you need to make an effective decision, because we've all talked about we are going to have to defend that position one way or the other. And I think that's critically important. The smaller, quicker things, I think those are easily explainable with logic. But the more strategic things, I think, are going to be founded in your discovery and your thought process about how you want to move forward.
Like I said earlier, I was a blank slate. I believe that the role of the council is to set policy, make decisions, approve budgets, determine how resources are going to be spent, and then to support the administrative team and help them be successful. I think it's as leaders, it's you want to put them in a place where you know that they're going to have success. And if they're not going to have success, I would think it's this body and the mayor that have to help them be in a successful place. So I think executive, legislative, operations, I think that's how you see it. So, but I have a lot to learn. That's the simple truth on that. As far as strategy goes, you can waste away your days fighting all the fires and doing all the things that are on your current task list and never think about the future. You could also do the opposite. You could think about the future and ignore everything that's going around you. I've watched both leadership styles. And the reality is it is a balance of the two, and you have to be deliberate. I think as humans, we often want to do the thing we can check off today because we feel good about our day today. And sometimes the long-term things that are really important in the long run, it's almost imperceptible progress in those areas, and yet you have to keep with it. And so strategically, I think you have to identify the various quadrants and where your focus is. And if you find yourself, we are continually battling a problem. Well, what's the system that's failing? Because there's got to be a better system or way of doing things so that you're not continually dealing with those details. One of the things that we do at the firm level is I'll just use this as a final example. We prepare tax preparation packages for the tax accountants to do the taxes. When a tax accountant asks us a question, we put it on a form so that next year that question is not asked. I do not want to answer that question twice. So proactively answer it, prepare for it next time. So now you can spend more time on the things that are really important.
Okay. We're deliberate. I'm going to talk about that in a second. For me, the role of being on the city council is to represent the people. That's what we're there for. And part of that obviously entails making sure we have the voice of the people, that we know what it is that folks want. And we've talked a little bit about that tonight, about trying to get more people involved. So I see my role as just representing what it is that people want. As far as the balance between short-term and long-term, again, agreeing with Tim, I like the word deliberate and I like the word systems. I don't think as a city, we should be operating with very many fires to put out at any point in time. If we've got plans in place that go up 20, 30 years, then we've got money allotted for those things. Sure, we have emergencies but those should be few and far between. We should have systems in place, as you mentioned. We should be deliberate. We should not be running around trying to figure out how we're going to fix this next thing that we weren't aware was going to be a thing until it comes up. Some of that I know can't, with infrastructure, things like that, you can't always predict it. But I think if you have enough information going into it, that again, it's not much of a balance other than the occasional emergency, because everybody knows what's happening. They know ahead of time what's happening.
Okay, so for me, I really think so the governance versus the administrative. So as a city council, if we can be unified as much as possible, we are here representing the residents of Woodland Hills, but we need to try to be as unified as possible in order to quickly accomplish goals. So how can we be strategic? So one, we need to be involved with all of the state and all the different government levels, so state, county, whatever. So our legislative process is really critical the first 3 months of the year. We don't have a full-time legislative body here in Utah, so it's really important to be involved in that. We can also really need to be involved with getting as many grants as possible, so researching and trying our hardest to get as much grant money as possible. And the most important part, and the mayor is really over the administrative part more, and that's our city, all of our city people that work for the city and provide all the resources or the services for us. Like we have to have our roads, we have to have snow removed and everything like that. We have to have our wells, we have to have water. Right? So those are really important, and we have a tight budget in order to fulfill those needs. So we have to look, where can we make our budget work best to cover the absolute needs we have to have, and how can we make revenue to cover anything extra? So getting the community involved, possible fundraising, cookie sale event, whatever, marathon event, things like that, future and strategically, long-term, having all the trails and things like that, long-term, those are good goals because we do have people that want to walk, and we need to get people off the roads so that, we're not trying to dodge people like we're trying to dodge deer, right? So we do have to be long-term strategically minded about these things. And short-term, we need to figure out how we can get the community to help with our short-term needs and fill the gaps.
Great. Well, this was a real grilling, so well done. Thank you. Now you gotta just take your seats and sweat out the rest of the work
15
session.
seconds.
Oh, yeah, wait, again, 1 minute, so 15 seconds. Doral, do you want a timekeeper on this, or are we gonna just?
It's gotta be 15 seconds.
loose? Okay.
And what was the?
Whatever you want to
statement?
say, your
Anything you
final.
want to say,
Can I be first?
closing remarks?
I have been very impressed with all these candidates here. I would support anybody. I will continue to support the city. New mayor, outgoing mayor, thank you for your service. If I can be of value, I'm happy to be of value, but I feel very confident that anyone here sitting in front of you is going to add tremendous value.
Appreciate that. Totally agree. The only thing I would add is I think my unique training and experience brings a depth again to the council. I'm here to serve in any capacity. I really appreciate meeting the other candidates, but I'm here to answer the call based on, honestly, what the voters said in November, where nearly half the city voted for me. So I want to be able to represent them because they wanted me to do that.
And I go home happy no matter what. I'm okay. So I'm happy to serve officially on city council, or I'm happy to serve unofficially. And if you live near me, you may get your driveway blown once we find this.
Dan stole a lot of mine. I'm honored to be in this group. I think you have 4 great choices that you will bring something to each of you. I feel inspired by the service that's been done, and I'm excited to get involved with the community. Thank you.
Great, and good way to finish it, Doral. Okay, thanks again, and we've got a few other items of business, and then we will bring the council meeting to order and call.
That was the last one.
That might be what we come down to.
Yeah.
I'm right.
Never mind.
That was fun for us. For us. That's so good.
That one's gotta stay. Yeah, good job, guys.
I think you were.
All right, well, item 3 out of 22. The rest should be
Steve, what
quite
you got?
swift sailing. All right, we've got a discussion of an outdoor lighting ordinance. Wayne, will you come up and share the latest there?
He needs a chair.
Yeah, we might need to scoot the table back a little too.
I just wanted to update the council a little bit on what we're doing with looking at updating our lighting ordinance. I know that last council meeting we had, you recommended that we contact our attorneys for input. And at this stage, I've chosen not to do that. We may have some added expenditures that weren't originally thought about per se. That will be attorney's fees, and so I think we can move forward without doing that with the information that we have at hand. We started a little bit with our own ordinance and kind of merged some things that Sherry put in a proposal that she had. You've all got a copy of that. Putting a fine point a little bit on one of the discussions. I've maintained that with the legislature this year not allowing cities to dictate in the building requirements or building reviews, I guess, best way of saying it, is to define, we cannot define, I'm trying to think of the verbiage here, non-structural architectural guidelines. But it doesn't say that we can't use those in forming ordinances. We just can't require builders to bring that to the table in their building permit process. We can still formulate ordinances that address that. So what you have is that we're adding lumens to our light ordinance so that there's a good comparison between whether it's wattage we're using or lumens we're using to define the amount of light that can emanate from a structure. And so we'll talk about this tomorrow night in the Planning Commission and see if we need to further define what we've got so far and what you have. And then we'll bring that back to you all for further consideration. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. I don't know if any of you have any questions about it, having looked at what was in your packet or not, but we're moving forward with that. And we'll talk to Planning Commission and come back to the council with the recommendation.
Thank you.
So
One thing, I appreciate you taking the heat for deciding not to go to the attorney, but we all had his back during staff meeting, as that was the
Well, we kind of talked
consensus
about
that
it
we'd come
through
to.
some of our conversations as well, and I think it's understandable at this point.
I just want to make sure everybody knew Wayne wasn't just standing in the breach alone on that one.
No, I thought that was something that the mayor had made a recommendation to in some of our other conversations, and I felt that was probably appropriate at that point. If we need to get there, then we go there, but at this point, Wayne is looking at moving forward, and so that.
Well, and we also had the recommendations from Meg Ryan, who is the senior land use advisor for the Utah League of Cities and Towns, as well as the ombudsman for the state looking at that law. And so as we put their free opinions, but very knowledgeable opinions in on this discussion. I think it helps us to recognize that the city has the rights to look at our lighting ordinances and to change them accordingly. We know from our survey that a lot of citizens, as part of quality of life, like the night sky. Maybe we don't want to go dark sky international, but we do appreciate that that level of our quality of life. And so as we look at the different ordinances that may or may not be, looking at other cities who have done something similar, not being being in compliance with state law as it pertains to architectural standards, it looks like lighting is separate from that because a lighting fixture is not a structural requirement for any building in terms of the structural quality of the building. It is just an extra. It might be for safety reasons. There are some things with regards to safety here at the city building and as well as maybe the mailboxes, because we want those to be lit. But in our interviews, we talked about quality of life and why we like to be here. Being able to see the stars is something I think everyone appreciates. So as we go forward with this, I look forward to having that discussion again in January.
Okay. Thanks, Lynn.
Very good, you bet. Thank you.
Okay, item 4, discussion of the proposed contracts for the Broad Hollow Tank Engineering and Geotechnical Study. Ted.
Okay, quick background, this is the tank, because we have 2 water tanks that we get water from. Maple Canyon is the one over that we share with Salem, then our tank up here. As part of ongoing development needs through Salem, we've been approached by a developer that's building over in, Three Bridges, who needs the storage out of the Maple Canyon tank to be able to service that development and other developments happening below there. In exchange for that, the developers offered to build a replacement tank for us by our existing tank, which operationally works out very well for us. As part of that agreement, we have some monies that have been allocated to go towards a tank from our impact fees we've been collecting. And so we've offered to contribute that money towards the tank because we have to spend that money on the tank. So in light of doing that, what we had worked out with Three Bridges is that we would hire an engineer to do the tank siting study and the geotechnical study for the tank site. And then we would pass that information on to them, who would then give it to their engineers, and they would finish out the engineering and the construction of the tank for us. So we requested proposals from engineers, and the first in there is the tank siting study, which is through our city engineers, Jones and DeMille, for $17,750. This will tell us where to put the tank. They'll also be able to use the water model to help it hydraulically match our system and et cetera, which makes a lot of sense for us. And then the second proposal is from a geotech engineer. Because there is a fault located right up along the base of the hill, we have to do a fault study for this tank and try and avoid that fault. So we have to do not only geotechnical engineering, but a fault study. So the other proposal you see in there is from a local geotechnical engineer to do a fault study and the geotechnical engineering. This money spent is a total of $44,000 and some change towards this engineering, which will be part of the money that we have agreed to contribute towards the tank from our impact fee money. So it's been budgeted for, and it will go towards the part of the $120,000 we're spending towards the tank. Will come out of this.
Would this include the Remy VS30 potential geotechnical?
That may be an addition. We don't know. That's an optional, and that all depends on where they get with the ultimately the engineers that will design the tank, because some structural engineers require that, some don't.
So it's not in your number?
No, it's not in the 26 or that would be an extra cost if we have to go with it. And if we want to authorize that now, included expenditure of $3,250 to do the Remy study, we could authorize that as part of the study as well. And then at least if it's needed, we'll have the authorization to use it.
So what are we looking at on a timeline for these 2 studies? And then therefore, after it goes to Three Bridges for the tank placement and total use?
So the timeline generally is the siting studies will be done. They'll start the survey tomorrow, assuming we get approval. and the siting study will take about a month. Geotech will also, is planning to be there towards the end of the week, take about a month. So about a month to do that, and then it'll take another couple months after that to finish out the design, 2 or 3 months. So the anticipation is to start construction possibly as early as this early summer.
Excellent.
Could snow delay this stuff? Can you work in the snow?
Construction wise, we wouldn't be able to work very
The
well in
study
it,
stuff.
but they can do the design stuff during the winter. Design during the winter, and then we'll start when the snow clears on the construction side. Which works out well with the timing of our road project, because we're also planning a road project. And if we can get all the heavy equipment up and down the road before the road project, and then we'll come back after as part of the road project and redo the road.
So I was looking through the indemnification and liability side of the geotech. I just want to make sure, and I trust your judgment, but I just want to make sure.
That's your mistake.
We've obviously had some difficulties here in the city with geotechs and reports and things like that. And so I want to make sure that we're really on board with the indemnification that they have in this contract, because to me, it reads kind of really good on their side. And I want to make sure that if there's something that goes wrong, that I know UPEs have got your insurances and everything else that the city's covered. That's what I'm more worried about. And I know you know this kind of stuff better than I do. I just want to make sure that we're covering our bases.
So from a legal aspect, an indemnification clause with engineers is a little bit difficult, because most of the time what engineers get indemnified for is up to their fee. And in some cases, they can go up to their insurance balance. Very rarely do you find the ability to indemnify or get indemnification from an engineer legally for the entirety of the project. So if they're building $1 million project and they do the geotech for it, obviously, if something happens, everyone's going to get sued. Contractor, the engineers, everybody. But in the event that there is something professionally that happens, they carry professional liability.
Correct.
All engineers do. Through insurance. And so that's where you go, if something happens that was an error or emissions in their work, then you can go after the professional liability insurance, which can then be up to,
Which would be separate from the indemnification in the contract, right? That's what I'm worried about, is that the indemnification doesn't free them from any professional liability.
Right. Professional errors or emissions go under their professional liability. Indemnification usually indemnifies them from if something happens that a lot of times is out of their control or beyond their scope.
Yeah. And I can totally understand that. That's why I want to ask to make sure you're on board with how this has been written.
And I know where this geotech lives.
But that errors and emissions coverage is standard and required, right? I mean, that we have that in place. So it's kind of 2 layers of protection in a sense. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that we've got you on a couple of other questions while you're here. Are you discussing the policy and procedure for the Woodland Hills Volunteer Fire and EMS pay policy, or is that Chris?
No, I can talk about that one.
Okay.
Before I do though, I got to say we got some great candidates here. Congratulate all of them for being willing to participate. I was a little disappointed in Brian because I had a great question all lined up for him, and he wouldn't ask it.
I only got 2 questions to find to go.
Well, everyone squirmed under your question, so you got that.
Mine was if they could be a spirit animal, which spirit animal?
Oh my God.
I thought we talked about superpower too, and perverts choose invisibility.
I used to do lots of, like these guys, I used to do lots of employee interviews, and I would sit in an interview, sometimes this lady who would do interviews with me, and that was always her question to the candidates.
Well, it's not too late.
Now we gotta know.
Adjourn.
Funny.
So the EMS, the fire and EMS pay policy. This is something to put a policy in place so we have a written procedure of how we do our pay for our volunteers and our appreciation bonuses to our volunteers. It's really a 2-part policy. The first part is occasionally when our firefighters or EMS go on calls, we go on calls that may be reimbursable through the state. So for example, we had 2 firefighters that went on a call this summer over in Mapleton and spent the night. It was originally dispatched to our 911 center,
And it was a Mapleton City fire that turned out to be on state ground, so the state took it over. We had 2 firefighters in a truck over there. And because we are under contract with the state on state fires, we were able as a city to get reimbursed. We spent 9 hours on that fire overnight. So we're able to get reimbursed for both our personnel time and our equipment vehicle time. So what this policy does is allows a way for our personnel when stuff like that happen, because it's a huge commitment to our firefighters, who I know in this case spent the entirety of the night from 11:30 p.m. till about 10 a.m. the next day, working this fire. And it was about noon when we got home, and pretty much a commitment. And it's not a large amount of money, but what this allows us to do is to reimburse personnel who go on these fires for the money that we get reimbursed. No more, no less. Just whatever the city gets reimbursed for our personnel time, that goes to our volunteer that volunteered for the fire. The second part of that is the equipment. We get paid for our truck being on the fire as well. The city keeps that money. So we also get paid for that as a city, and that helps earn money for the city and covers any expenses we might have. So the first part of the pay policy does that. It just establishes a policy of how we would make that happen. And then the second part of this is each year, as an appreciation to our firefighters, we like to give them just we budget a little bit of money in our fire budget to give them appreciation money, a bonus at the end of the year. This establishes the policy for that. And to give you just a brief overview of what the policy is we have basically a point system, and it's a big spreadsheet we've set up. So it lines up with our SOGs for our firefighters, where they have to meet certain criteria. And for each of these criteria they meet, for example, they have to attend more than 50% of trainings, they have to go on more than 20% of calls, et cetera. For each of those criteria, they get a point, or a half point or a quarter point, but they earn points. And then whatever budget we have available based on the total points, it calculates a per point value, then gets assigned to each firefighter for the amount of points they have. And that just gives them a little extra money. We budget for this every year, and this year we've budgeted $17,000 to go to our firefighters. The 22 volunteers we have in our department will be split up among them based on the points they've earned. And just to give you a quick commitment from these volunteers, I did some numbers today just real quickly, and I calculated that our volunteers have given over 2,500 hours to the city in being on calls, certifications, or trainings. And then we also in August started a on shift, or started shifts with our EMS personnel. So we now have an EMT on shift 24 hours a day to meet our licensing requirements. And just since August, we've had over 3,000 hours volunteers on shift. So that's over 5,000 hours put in by these volunteers. So this is just a little something to give back at the end of the year. We budget for our volunteers for a little bit of their time spent. So that's basically what the policy does, is it allows a way for us to outline how they'll get paid if we go on a state reimbursable fire, and how we distribute the budget. And then the amount we'll distribute. Each year may change, but this year we've calculated $17,000 worth of budget.
Last month, we talked a little bit about front payment when they go out of state for training. So would that be included in this policy at all? Just because this seems to be all about payment? Is that, or we are keeping that as a separate policy because it's?
So that was a whole different policy under our wildfire crew. So
Right.
that's a different policy for our full-time wildland.
Yeah.
That was for them going possibly out of state when they respond to fires out of state, getting some upfront money, which that policy's already been approved.
Right.
This
I was
policy
just wondering if
doesn't
if it was going to be incorporated into this.
It has to do with paying them per diem, and when we get reimbursed versus when they get reimbursed and they're.
I just was wondering because we're talking mostly reimbursement and payment, and if it was all considered the same type of thing, but I can see where it's two separate, but I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't
Yeah,
just
this one, we typically don't get a per diem on this one, because this is when it's dispatched through a 911 center and not through the state contract stuff, which it eventually can end up under state contract. So typically, these don't come with a meal per diem like our full-time crew gets when they go out of town.
Okay. I like the policy.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
Just a quick note, I'm on the fire department. I'm going to recuse myself on this vote.
As am I.
Okay, well.
So it's you three.
to recruit.
We don't do this for the money. It's not.
Not why we're.
We don't, none of us do it anything for the money.
Anyway,
And I will state that none of our
Hotel.
volunteers ever asked for this. It's just something we like to do as appreciation for,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of time, a lot of commitment to do this.
Yeah,
So.
no, it's a good call.
thanks.
We
All right.
put a lot of time into these two documents, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Ted. All right, item 7. Establishing a city council meeting schedule for 2026. Don't care.
We're done. On that note, I think you do, because you said you'd still come,
Yeah, no, we'll be here.
you know?
We need Monica.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
one of those still.
It's what?
You still have to be here on January 6th.
Yes, you
Yeah,
do.
oh, I know. I got one more, okay, so.
How are you gonna have your Popeyes if you don't come here?
Right, yeah, no, that's on the way. Okay, Jody, is that you that's kind of leading this, or did anybody have any comments or questions?
I have no issue.
Okay.
Good.
Okay,
It's great.
we will move along to item 8. Proposed ordinance to initiate the establishment of the City of Woodland Hills Data Privacy Program, designate a chief administrative and authorized records officer, require records for proof of officer and employee privacy training, prepare website data privacy notice, endorse the state of Utah's data privacy policy, and complete City of Woodland Hills internal data privacy policy or data privacy program report. Excuse
Can't
me.
even hardly read the title.
Yeah, no, it's a long one. And our attorneys, they contacted us, so we actually have, this is kind of a deadline sensitive issue based on some state legislation. So thanks to Jody for, and Chris too, for, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but I know that they were working on that. So it's something where they gave us basically the language, right? I mean, we really are just adopting it.
Well, we thought we had covered everything in the policy and procedure that we adopted at the last meeting in November. Our attorney felt that we could adopt more. While it was sufficient according to Spencer Foster, they wanted to add some more language to it. And so we are going to go ahead and add some more language. And it also outlines the report that we'll need to file before the end of the year with the state.
And when there's disagreement, you always trust the lawyers.
That's right.
Okay.
That it's important for the residents to realize how important data privacy is, and that we're trying everything we can to be in compliance with not only the state statute, which is probably going to change again during the legislative session. They always will have new things to add, but at least we will be in compliance by the end of the year when our report is due. And that we value data privacy. And there's a lot to it because we have all of you who submit your names to have your bill paid online. And
But Carrie, that's not managed by us. Let's
Yeah, that's a
be
third
careful
party.
on that.
that's a third party, but it is part of our data privacy policy in that we hire that.
No, we don't absorb any of that liability.
Okay.
That's on them.
So they take that on them, but
We don't absorb, and we don't have.
but
any
we make sure
forms.
they have a policy.
Yeah, we don't have any fillable forms on our website. We don't
Yes.
do any of those things that would cause us to compromise your privacy. So.
Absolutely.
that is our-
And there's really not a lot of collection that we even do. I mean, almost every instance is through a third-party provider who
Yep.
has their own policies.
Who has their policy that also has to be in compliance. I guess that's what I was trying to say is that our partners that we contract with, we made sure that they also are in compliance with this data policy.
Do not.
They have to show the state that they're in compliance, and then we show the state that we're in compliance. So somewhere along the line, everyone's in compliance, and somebody else is overseeing all that. But we can oversee our part.
Yeah, and this is basically mandated by the state for a city, and this is the recommendation of our attorneys. So anybody have any comments?
It's very, and I really like that you've referenced every single aspect of the state code on each line. That helps a lot too.
And just so you're aware, they talk about as CAO, a Chief Administrative Officer, and an ARO, which is an Administrative Records Officer. I did not put who that is, except for it's the
It's a
mayor
job title.
and the city recorder, so it's a title. That way, if those change, we don't have to go back and change our ordinance.
Yeah, no, I think that's so
That's
wise move, and
really
I
great.
believe that you're on board with that, right?
Mhm.
Mayor-elect?
I'm ecstatic. That's great. Yeah, I'm gonna call the mayor now and just ask him for advice every time.
All right, then let's move on to item 9. Back to you, Ted.
He's snacking back there.
I know, you gotta give me a minute to eat my gummy bears.
Steve will be joining you in a second.
Won't tell him what kind of gummy bears they are. Public Works update. Everything goes great in Public Works. We are having the bid opening tomorrow morning for we'll call it phase 3 of the road project, which is the pulverize and repave some of those roads, maybe up in Thousand Oaks. And that'll help us establish what the cost will be so we can finish up our funding with Zions to get in that place and hopefully start that project next year and get the rest of those roads done. Other than that, the snow removal's been going great. We've got a good snowplow group this year. And
Not a lot of snow.
Not a lot of snow. They've had a practice run.
Okay.
And doing a great job. So I don't have a lot of other updates on Public Works. We're working on some funding for some water projects, but Division of Drinking Water, who we go through for some funding sources, is put a moratorium on requesting funds through grants or loans until midsummer. Yeah, they had the six-month moratorium. They've had so many requests, they got to get caught up. They're not even sure what kind of money they have, so. But we'll continue to work on that and then have an application hopefully ready to see if we can make something work. So I've been working on ways to phase that project and also fund the project and what it would take to fund it. So on the fire side, nothing really to report. Our wildland crew is off for the year now. And they're still available. So if we do get a call through the state to go on a out-of-state fire, most of the crew is still available and we can still send them out over the winter if we need to. Okay.
What do they do for employment in the winter?
I know that one of them really doesn't do anything. His wife works full-time, who you know.
Yeah.
So he doesn't do a lot during the winter. He has a little farm, I think. I don't know what the other ones are doing.
Because when Jamin did it, it was always tough. He had to find a job in the winter.
Yeah, one of them went on a mission.
Oh.
So he's gone.
Okay.
And one of them is still going to be available. He's just doing some training. And the other one is, I think, still deciding whether to go into some training or go on a mission. He's still trying to make the call right now.
Okay. Just wondering.
We'll be looking to advertise for some more crew members probably here soon. So. Excellent. Okay, thank you. Planning Commission and Code Zoning Enforcement. Wayne?
I don't have anything unless the council has any questions for me.
Nope.
Okay, great, thank you. Mayor and City Council reports. Well, this is my last report on the personnel, so I just think that it is worth noting that I genuinely believe that the city is in good hands at the administrative level, the staff level. We've got people that are very committed to their jobs. They're conscientious about the quality of their work. To a few of the applicants' points made earlier in our meeting, I think that we have very specific plans in place, and obviously there's the unexpected turns that government can take and life can take, but I think that we're in a very good place and that's to their credit. So
Yeah.
bravo to the personnel. Yeah.
They love our city just as much as any other resident and maybe even more. Because, it's a hard thing.
Yeah. And get to see it at some of its worst sometimes too. So that's saying something. Okay, Councilmember Hilliard.
Well, I'll just second what you just said. Our personnel is fabulous. So I'm excited to be able to work even more closely with them in this next 4 years. So thank you for that opportunity. Nothing new for emergency management. We have not had any meetings. They, have been off for holidays. And I will have a name to propose to each of you. And one of, Steve and whoever else is selected for my replacement as an emergency manager in January. So anticipate that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Hutchings.
So we actually haven't had any meetings, but I do want to say something here at the end of the year on the side of Park Trails and Rec. Now, not been my forte to be the liaison for that group. It's just it's not my thing, right? I'm an engineer, but I've done a lot of thinking over the last probably 6-8 months. And something I want to put out to our council members and future council members that I think I feel really strongly about this. I think we need to find a way to work with the PTR committee and get the city of Woodland Hills a pickleball court and get some of the other things done, some of the paving so we can get some access up there at the park. I've really thought a lot about this, and I know they put a proposal together and we didn't get the grant, but I think it's something I really would like the council as a whole, even if I'm not on PTR. I hope I'm not on PTR. I'm sorry. But I really would like the council to put some serious thought into this on how we could do it, because I think it would be a great thing for our community. There's some logistics that we need to deal with and try to not let all of Salem and Payson and Spanish Fork take over our.
They have their own.
But I really think it would be a great thing for our city. So please think about it and put it in your heads. And I don't know how to accomplish this, but
I think I'm getting it back, so it's okay.
I'm hoping that's one of the strongest things I've thought about the PTR committee is that it is a pickleball court. I think it would behoove our city to have something like that. So.
Good point. Thank you.
Planning Commission? Nothing?
No, we haven't had a meeting. I'm looking forward to actually being here for a meeting for once in a long time. Tomorrow, I believe we have a meeting, Wayne?
Yes, tomorrow night.
So I'll actually be here normally. I'm on Teams for those, so. And yes, you can travel. I travel a lot. So I do a lot on Zoom.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Kinnison.
All right, I'm gonna go fast because I see the audience is steaming to get out of here. We did a successful siren test, and I want to thank Ted for performing some maintenance on that system again to get it to function more perfectly. But so the sirens to us are pretty important, and they are working. So thank you for that, Ted. We had a great Santa run. I want to especially thank the person who showed up at 8 a.m. to help me create the most difficult sound system ever on a fire engine. It's the most complicated thing you've ever seen. It takes a rocket scientist, and luckily he showed up at 8, so we got it done. 2 ladies have completed the residential fire course.
Who showed up at 8?
That young man right there by my wife, Stephen Lee.
Yes, buddy.
He was great. It was great. I couldn't have done it without him. So he made it happen. So 2 ladies have completed the Fire 1 and Fire 2 fire course. It's the most complicated course that our people take. I want to tell you, one of them showed up, and is the other one here too?
No, but her husband is.
Rachel Wallace and Whitney Hilliard. These 2 ladies have impressed the other cities that participated in this fire course. They made a good name for Woodland Hills by outdoing the men, I hear. So But that's a written test, a physical test, it's been going on for months. I've been hearing about this since like first of the year, it feels like, so it went on forever. Congratulations, and they passed everything, so, that's all I have to report. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lunt.
Nothing for finance, but communication, just a big thank you. Everybody has gotten in all their articles and just helped us make the newsletter happen. Some, Wayne and Ted, they get to do one every single month for me. And I get to send out a text and remind every single month. Actually, if we're being honest, I never have to remind Wayne, so thank you, Wayne. He just always sends it. But council and mayor, they get twice a year, and I just appreciate they're always willing to do it. And I think it adds a lot to it. It makes it really good. A lot of good information in there. And then just events and volunteers, just Santa. Santa was great. It's kind of funny because last year we had under 300. So I buy the candy canes with the candy in them, and I know how many I have. And that's how I figure out how many kids we saw. And last year, it was under 300. It was a really poor turnout. So we decided that this year, what you need is a good rainstorm. You get a lot of kids. So we had closer to 400 this year. So it was a good crowd. I felt like it was a good success. There was good feelings. It was really fun. We had one stop where there were no kids, and we had that same thing happen at that stop last year. So we'll just eliminate that one stop. So we'll go down to 6 stops next year.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it helped that there was no wards having their Christmas party exactly at the same time.
There were 2.
There were 2? Oh.
It actually works fabulous because we
As long as they're
texted.
at the church, they can come out.
Yeah, they all come out in their pajamas and it worked great. Yeah, it was great.
Good.
We had a lot of probably kids that maybe we wouldn't have gotten otherwise, and some older ones and stuff. So good crowds. It was fun.
Good.
So thank you, the fire department and Santa and Buddy, they make it happen and we're really appreciative. So
Santa's awesome.
Santa is awesome.
Yeah, he's our fave.
We had the Grinch too, and the Grinch
He was good.
was fabulous. Like he was walking the part and the kids were just
Scaring the
enthralled.
kids.
Yes. He was so good.
We'll have to continue
Yeah, he
that.
was way better.
Better than last year's Grinch?
They're all good Grinches.
He was so good.
He was properly disgruntled.
Yes. It was really good. So I had fun. Thank you, everybody.
Everybody told me they loved it. It was really great. I thought that maybe with the rain, it would. hinder
That's
people,
what you
but
need is you need some rain or some
It did.
snow and then it's a lot more fun. So.
Yep.
Festive. Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you, Janet. Okay, Councilmember Malkovich.
As stated before, no Public Works Committee report. Community Development finished their written proposals and changes to the general plan and have submitted it to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission will now take their turn to look over and make any of their recommendations. And then in a few months, it will come here to the council and we'll be able to see on one document both iterations of what that is, so that then we can see what each side was thinking at the time, and then we can change it how we want to before it's final. They are starting now in January to work on the strategic plan. They're probably, because the strategic plan is a council only, it doesn't go to the planning commission. It's not their role. It's a council on what the strategy that the council wants to implement. So they will probably be coming directly to us after they start that with questions and priorities based on some of their research that they did prior. So in January, that will start. And then, of course, in January also starts the legislative session. As I stated earlier to the new people who are maybe potential council people, looking at between 300 and 400 bills that will impact municipal government. And so we will be working heavily with our state representatives and with the league to make sure that what happens is beneficial to Woodland Hills, and the things that aren't, we will fight against. And so if any of you have concerns, make sure you let me know as soon as you hear something, and we're there. have 65 days to make or break a lot of things.
Okay, thank you. All right, upcoming, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, do we get a 5-minute break maybe?
Oh, not yet. I've got bad news, so I want you to this on your break. All right, so some current and former elected officials, we did get another lawsuit filed against us, and we were recently served by Tannen and Megan Fugia. This is a case that was filed in federal court. It's an amended complaint for civil rights violations and violations of federal constitutional rights and related claims and damages. So we've conferred with our attorneys on this. They did suggest that we mention this. I mean, this is a matter of public record, but the city does have the indemnification policy that we plan to utilize, and would love to see this come to an end, but it looks like it's still a little bit alive and kicking, so.
Case number 9.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Well, federal, this is a new one. And we can obviously talk strategically in a closed session, but I did want to just make sure that we had something in our public meeting.
I mean, that's
about
public record too,
indemnification.
that's why I was.
Yeah. No, I agree.
This is
Is this number
is-
9 or 10?
allegations from them to us.
Yeah, I actually am not certain on which number it is, but
Okay, I just wondered.
it's in the ballpark of both of those. All right, so that is obviously an upcoming item, but other than that, we can take, there was some conversation about whether or not additional deliberative time might be needed. And we're closing down the bathrooms so that.
We will take turns going in there, so we will not talk.
We don't want anyone to think we're in there talking.
But usually we take about a 5-minute break. Does anybody feel that additional time is needed to come to a decision on the council appointment?
I do.
Like 2 or 3 weeks.
I just mean during when we start back up, when that comes, I would like to talk over, just in general, what we think our top needs are and the top qualifications. And then as we go into our vote on these 4 wonderful candidates, I just want to make sure that we are clear on what our needs are, because each person here we have our own, place in the city, and we each have our own assignments. So we might be thinking, well, the needs are, and I think it might be good for us to verbally say what we think the needs are of the city at this point, and not naming any of the individuals who were here. But then as we go into that next portion, lining up that part.
I mean, I'm certainly fine if any council member wishes to express his or her opinion concerning the process. I don't know that I necessarily want to have it be an open debate about any particular candidate, but
No,
I mean, if
not
that's.
candidate.
Okay,
No
I mean, so
candidate,
if you have
just
something you
needs.
want to say, by all means, I hope you feel welcome to say that. And if the other council members want to say something, but so just as far as how I anticipate this going procedurally. So after that, if there is anybody that has any sort of final words saying, we will also open this up for public comment too. I mean, and if there are any here that are interested in expressing public comment, I mean, as you may have seen, I don't like keeping a hard clock, but we do try to keep it to 2 minutes. So we would ask that it be at least that short, but certainly not any longer than that. But so that would be what we do, is we would have, after the pledge, the public comment portion, and then the council can make any last statements concerning the candidates or the applicants. And then we will open it up to a motion for a vote, and we'll take it from there. So why don't we reconvene at 8:40 and we'll get to it.